On this episode, sexual energy blocks. This is the Holistic Alpha Male Optimization Podcast, where we help you unleash your true power as a man. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Stephen Mathis. Thanks for listening and for watching. There is a video version of today's episode. You can click to the link, the YouTube link in the show notes for that. I'm on the road, as you can see here. I'm in the Wasatch Mountains, just south of Mount Olympus. It's a beautiful day, and I've had an awesome day so far. Started the day with connecting with some of you guys. In fact, did some coaching calls, had a group high-intensity training session this morning, which was awesome. I've connected with an incredible group of people that I've been loving adding to the mix, and came out for some outside time in the mountains, connecting with nature, getting some sun, getting some steps in, and just getting out in the world. Let's talk about sexual energy blockages. We all have sexual energy blockages to some degree or another at various times in our life, because sexual energy blockages are nothing more than sexual energy trauma. Now, that word trauma refers to a wide range of things. People use that in all kinds of contexts, and it can refer to anything from, on the extreme end, something like rape or sexual abuse or other things you might think of, right? On that more extreme end. On the other end, it might be something that one of your friends said to you when you were in grade school, and it really kind of hit you hard, and it hit your self-image on that day, and boom, it gets stored as this emotional trauma. So it's this huge, wide range of things that if we cannot process something in the moment, and we can't process it in a conscious way, which especially as children, we're not really doing that. So we have a lot of these things that kind of get stored in us. That happens to us in various aspects of our life, and it gets stored in various ways in our body. One of the aspects that process happens in is with our sexual energy. So we have a series of experiences throughout childhood, throughout adulthood, that can lead to this kind of thing happening. So some examples of that. Maybe you were, as a teenager, you got caught masturbating, and you had this emotional kind of like freak out moment, and boom, it gets kind of stored, and now you have more of this shame and guilt around masturbating. Maybe your wife caught you looking at porn and masturbating, and then there's kind of this stuff that gets stored from that. Maybe you have a bad sexual experience with a partner. Bad, meaning you ejaculate 10 seconds in, and that's not what you were hoping for. That kind of thing can get stored. So we have lots of experiences from childhood on through adulthood that can get stored as this sort of sexual energy related trauma. And this can come in the form of relationships. It doesn't have to be sex directly. It can be various things that affect that aspect of us, and they get stored. And when that trauma gets stored, it creates it creates energetic blockage. We're energetic beings. We have this energy that's flowing through us, through every cell of us all the time. And we have this sexual energy that flows through us, or ideally it is flowing through us. And whether it's sexual energy, other types of well-being and energy in our body, stored trauma creates tension, and tension creates blockage. Think about a muscle maybe that you've had. Maybe you've really overworked it and it's been tight and sore and hurting. What happens with that is you literally get less blood flow. There's less life force flowing through that. So not only are you hurting in that area, but you're weaker in terms of the action that you can take with that area. There's less life force flowing through it. There's less energy flowing through it. And the same thing happens with these sexual energy blockages. When stuff gets stored as trauma, it creates an impediment to that energy flowing through us. And that will play out and affect us in different ways. It might affect your erection quality. It might affect your libido and how much you desire sex. It might affect your ability to be present and aware in a sexual experience and actually have awareness and being in the moment as instead of being stuck in your head. It'll play out in all kinds of ways, none of them really good. The other way it will play out is in your ability to translate sexual energy into other kinds of energy. So as that sexual energy moves from that part of our body up through the rest of us, that's when we can really translate it into other aspects of being and other aspects of life. Creativity, for example, that's something I've had so many direct experiences of sexual energy, literally like moving up my body, and boom, it gets to my head, and all of a sudden it's like creative idea. That's maybe an issue that I've been thinking about, or something I've been working on, or something I didn't even know I was working on, but so many creative ideas that have come directly from that. And whether it comes directly from that in the moment, or it just brings that, it opens up that creative channel, that sexual energy we can transmute into all kinds of other energy, not only creativity, but physical energy and power and recovery and emotional steadiness and all of these things that we can translate that sexual energy into. But if there's blockages and it's slowing down that whole process, then less of that is going to happen. So the more of this tension, trauma, blockage that we have in the area of our sexuality, the more it's going to have negative consequences as a result of that. And the more it's going to prevent us from accessing some of the most positive, powerful aspects of our sexuality, which is translating it, transmuting it into other things. So what can we do about it? Well, let's think about our muscles again, right? Because it's a very good, it's a good comparison in a lot of ways with our sexuality. And emotional trauma gets stored in other parts of our body as all kinds of tension and trauma. When we have an injury to a muscle, which is what tension is, right? It's this, everything's too tight, it's pulled together, usually as a result of getting pulled apart more than it can deal with. And then as it heals from that, it gets tight and kind of locked together in an uncomfortable way, right? That's really what happens on an emotional kind of level as well, right? We get emotionally pulled beyond what we can handle. And in the aftermath of that, in the recovery of that, we have this tension that forms, right? So if we're going to deal with that in a muscle, what would we do? Two things. Movement. We would exercise that area. We would access it. We wouldn't just sit and do nothing, right? If you have that kind of tension in a muscle, yeah, rest can be good. But what is often required is two things. Movement and massage is really helpful. So how does that apply to our sexuality? The same thing. One of the ways that you work through some of this stored sexual trauma that creates tension, that creates blockages, is you access your sexuality in a positive way. So, for example, when it comes to the masturbation thing, right? The more you can move down a path where it becomes actually a sacred, empowering practice, and the more you do practice that, it starts to heal that old stuff. One of the experiences that a lot of guys go through is with shame around that, right? Like shame and guilt around masturbation. And as guys move, I've seen it over and over again, as guys move further into that journey of creating a sacred, empowering practice out of it, your brain learns a new ways of identifying with and associating emotions with that experience. And you start to look at it in a new way. And in doing that, it will heal some of that older stuff. And this applies in lots of contexts, right? So if it's something with partners in general, or with your current specific partner, moving down a path of reconnecting in a sacred, high vibration way is often what is really an important part of healing some of that tension and trauma and opening up some of those blockages. I've seen this again with guys with an edging practice, with their solo practice. The more that you get into that practice, you guys, the more it's going to start to heal some of this stuff. And you can heal so many of these things. You can heal things alone that involved partners, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be, if it was a bad sexual experience, for example, that caused you to sort of store some emotional stuff that you carry with you, and it causes you to get in your head in certain ways every time the idea of, having sex comes up. That kind of stuff, yes, you can definitely work through it with partners in general and with your specific partner if that's what it's about. But you can also work through a lot of this stuff alone, right? You can access, because this is stored literally as tension in your body as a physical thing. So if you can physically access that in a healing way with a kind of energy that is a healing energy, you can work through and heal a lot of that stuff. So movement, right? That's the first thing we do, is we move. We practice in sacred, empowering ways, accessing our sexuality and doing it in a positive way. The other thing that works fantastically well is massage. I've talked about massage before. I've talked about testicle massage. I've talked about massaging your perineum, which is the space between your balls and your anus, right? Perineum. If we talk about our PC muscle, it's basically this hammock-shaped thing at the root of our torso, and that's where our perineum is, right? So yes, massaging your testicles is awesome for your body in various ways, but massaging your perineum, that's where you can actually access that stored sexual trauma, tension. You can access it directly through massage as well. So it's so beneficial to practice massage in this area. I would recommend massaging that area on a very regular basis, especially if you have a lot of tension in that area now that you know of, that you can feel, which a lot of guys do. It's really important for a number of reasons to release that tension. Not only this sexual energy, emotional blockage kind of standpoint, but also just for stamina and control and being able to actually control your root muscle. We need to remove that tension. So there's a lot of good reasons to release that tension, but massaging that area is directly accessible. And it's, again, if you had a sore muscle, what would you do with it? Or a muscle that you wanted to heal, you would move it and you would massage it, are probably the two big things that you would do with it. And that's the same thing you can do with your sexuality. Practice sacred, empowering, positive ways of accessing your sexuality, and practice massage. Specifically with massage, you could do 5 to 10 minutes. You could do a minute if you only have time for that. You could spend a lot longer. It's really up to you. Listen to your body, but you want to massage that entire root area, right? So it actually can kind of start above your balls where your abs meet kind of your pelvis, right? That whole system, that root muscle system kind of starts right there and goes all the way around to behind the anus, right? So the more that you can kind of massage, the more potential places you're going to access that have some kind of tension that is stored there. And when you release this tension through accessing your sexuality in a positive way, through massage, when you release this tension, you will feel more energy flow. And one of the things that will result from that, that's actually really awesome, is sex becomes more pleasurable. That's one of the things that these blockages can do, is they almost numb or deaden the sensation. Not completely, obviously, but they do. They take the edge off. They quiet it a bit. And the more that you can release this kind of tension that's stored there, not only will you experience better things from your sexuality in multiple ways, but it will actually feel better. It will literally feel more pleasurable when you can remove this tension. So consider in your body, maybe identify on a scale of 1 to 10, how much sexual trauma, tension, blockage would you say you have in your body right now? Think about it for the next 2 seconds, 5 seconds. And then start doing something about it. Recognize that, again, it's something that we all have, we all go through, but not everybody actually heals it and works through it. And if you heal it and work through it, man, your sexual energy will flow so much more freely. It will transmute into all the other aspects of you that we want that sexual energy to transmute into. And you will have much better actual sexual experiences. So think about that. Put that into some practice. If you would like to schedule a coaching call with me, by the way, there is new stuff up on holisticalpha.com. There's a lot more coming. Right now, there is, among other things, a page where you can book a coaching call directly with me right there. So if you would like to schedule a session, do that. I'm going to go and enjoy my way down from the mountains before I continue with the day. Send you guys all my best. Go out, kick ass, get after it. Let me know if I can do anything to help you. We'll talk to you soon.